first of all, thank you guys for coming today. I really appreciate it. I need to give credit where credit is due. I totally found this on the internet, copied it almost exactly word for word, so used quotes. But I found it at affordablecollegesonline.org. And the first article that I'm using is by Elizabeth Kane and Timon Capel. And then I looked for something, there was nothing in the first one about financing, paying for grad school, so I went out and looked again, and I found something on usnews.com by Michael Morella. So, giving credit where credit is due, that's where this came from. So we have 6 different sections we're going to talk about today. What are they looking for? What's a grad school looking for in an applicant? What are the requirements usually on that application? Tips for crushing each part of the application, what not to do on your application when applying, what are some frequently asked questions, and then I added on 5 strategies to pay for grad school. So we'll go through them a section at a time. So the first section on what are the requirements for your grad school application. The first thing that they're looking for is personality. You are going to be working very closely. You'll have a committee, like in your undergrad, normally you've worked with your advisor one at a time, teacher one at a time. Once you get into grad school, you're working with a committee that will oversee your final thesis. That's the big paper and research you will do at the end. So you'll be working with a committee of like 3 to 5 different people. And so you want to make sure it's a good fit where you're at. When I was finishing my doctorate, my committee, I had 5 people, and there was one I just had never quite blended with, and he's the one who gave me the most trouble on my dissertation to get through, but eventually I passed, so. Okay, the second thing that they're looking for is academic accountability. They want to know what your goals are, and are your goals similar to what that particular graduate school's goals are. Typically, you're very specialized in your grad program, and so you want to tailor your cover letter to fit what that school's requirements are. So if you were getting a graduate degree, for example, in psychology, very broad field. What kind of psychology? School psychology, mental health psychology, children, adults, disabled people, neuropsychology. So you want to find the grad program that fits what your interests are. Original thought. They are looking for on your application, what are your expectations? And so when you do this, you should be very succinct and clear and genuine in what it is that you're saying when you put your thoughts on paper. Then they're looking to see, are you really invested? Hey, come on in, sign up and grab a val form and a PowerPoint. So they want to know, are you invested in the process? Are you just there seat time trying to get a degree? Because your end goal is to get the degree, but along the way, you're going to produce a lot of research, and you're going to contribute to that graduate school's body of knowledge. And so they want to know, are you really invested in the process, or is it, I'm coming just because I want a master's degree or I want a doctorate degree? Are you going to contribute to their common body of knowledge that exists in their university? Okay, they're looking for passion. Why do you want this? Why do you want this degree? How are you going to contribute to our body of knowledge? And then what are you doing after graduation? Because now you're going to be an alumni of their university, and they want to know, are you going to make us look good? You know, are we going to be proud to say this person graduated, they completed all the requirements and graduated from our university? So they want to know, do you have passion for what it is that you're going to do? You guys have any questions or comments about that section, what they're looking for in an applicant? Your personality, your passion, your potential achievements. Okay, then we're going to go on to the second section. What are the requirements on the application? Well, first of all, you need to know there's probably going to be 2 applications. You're going to apply to that university itself, and then you're also going to apply to that school. They call them schools or colleges. Here we kind of say biology department, but on the graduate level, it's the College of biology, veterinary science, the College of Education, so it's colleges within the university. So you will probably have 2 applications. Then each one of those applications is going to cost you money. So you need to know that in advance and be planning ahead. Fees for a graduate school application can be anywhere from $50 to $150. So know that going in, you're going to need some cash up front. Now here's what you also need to know. Because you're in Project Stay, we are a first generation program, and even if you weren't in Project Stay, if you qualify financially, you often can get a waiver for your fees. We're going to talk about testing and how in Project Stay, I actually have some discounts that I can give you on your tests that you're going to take. So on the fees, just know that you're probably applying to 2 different schools, the university itself, and then that, what we would call a department, but they'll call school of or college of. And then it's going to cost you $50 to $150, but there is a chance that you could get up to a 50% waiver, but you have to ask for it. They don't advertise that. Okay, official transcripts. Most master's and graduate programs don't let you submit an unofficial copy of your transcript. They want the official copy from everywhere you've gone to school. So if you went to Crowder or a junior college somewhere, if you took dual credits in high school or AP in high school, they want every single transcript you've ever done. Most universities now, and Southern does this and Crowder does this, they use the clearinghouse to have your transcript sent. Those usually cost about $10 to $15 to have a transcript sent, but they're going to want the official one. Now, unofficially, you should get a copy of your transcripts just for your own purpose. So when I finished my degrees and I had retired from public school and I had the opportunity to come out here, they wanted copies of my transcripts. So I had Missouri Southern, then I had Pitt State, then I had MSU in Springfield, then I had St. Louis University. So I had official copies sent, but then I also got copies for myself. You may never need them, but what I did is I got 5 copies of each one of my transcripts and just kept them in a drawer. And I was going to do the social work program here because, you know, I love learning. And they needed copies of my transcripts, but they could be unofficial copies. So I had those in my drawer. I was just able to get out and give away. So you want to make sure you do that. And you just go online to have them sent. Almost everybody uses the clearinghouse now. Okay, test scores. Depending on the program that you're going to do. If you're going on in education, psychology, social sciences, history, you're probably going to take the GRE, Graduate Record Exam. If you're going in science, medical, you're going to take the MCAT. If you're going to law, you're going to take the LSAT. So there's a variety of tests that you could end up taking. If you take the GRE, you get a verbal score, a math score, and a writing score. So this particular slide, which you have copies of, tells you what the average scores, like the GRE, the verbal average is a 150, the quantitative or the math is a 152.6, and the analytical writing, it's on a 5-point scale, it's a 3.5. If you're going to the MCAT for math, the best score you can get is a 528. People who got admitted to medical school scored on average between 510 to 511. So that kind of gives you an idea of what your scores will need to be. Years ago, when I went on to graduate school, you just had to take the GRE. You didn't have to achieve a certain score on it. My daughter is now at Springfield in a master's program, and she had to take the GRE, and she did have to have a minimum score. So most places are probably going to require a minimum score. Another thing it tells you is try to take this test at least 2 months before you need to submit it. And the reason why is because if you decide you want to take it again, either you didn't get the score you wanted or your score probably is not average, then you may need to take it again. So plan for at least 2 months before you need this score to be sent. Okay, letters of recommendation. Yes?
I just want to ask, so you said the GRE, so would that fall under English?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If you're an education major, yes, you'll be taking the GRE, Graduate Record Exam.
Okay.
We have study materials, I'll talk about that in a little bit and tell you how to save some money on it too. Okay, your application is gonna ask for letters of recommendation. So I was a high school counselor, principal, before I came out here. I've written lots and lots of letters of recommendation. So here's my advice. Give it to me early. On here, they recommend that you give it to the people that you're going to ask to write your recommendations 2 months in advance. I've never had one given to me that far in advance, but that's the recommendation. You're gonna give it to someone who can attest to your academic or your professional capacity. So you're not gonna give it to your boss at Walmart, because although he can attest or she can attest to what a good work ethic you have, they're looking for someone who can talk about your academics, your professionalism, your accomplishments in your undergraduate program. Okay. Let the person that you're asking to write the recommendation know what the requirements are. So more than likely, you're going to get an electronic application saying a letter recommendation form, and more than likely, you're just going to email that on to the persons that you're asking to write the letters of recommendation. Almost always in there it says it can't be more than so many words. It has to address these 3 main topics. Generally speaking, the requirements are in there, but not always. So if the requirements were just given to you in a general email, you need to send those requirements on to the person that's writing your letter of recommendation. Because what we want to do is we want to tailor the letter of recommendation to what the school or the college wants. We don't want to talk about things that they don't want. Most programs are going to ask for 3 to 4 letters of recommendation, and most places want them to be 1 and not more than 2 pages. So just make sure you give all the details to the person that you're going to ask to write your letter of recommendation. On the application, it may ask you for 1 or 2 things. It may ask for a personal statement, or it may ask for a statement of purpose, or it may ask for both. And those are 2 very, very different things. So your personal statement is more of a pre-form writing. It allows you to reveal insights about your personality. It's more broad in focus. They may even give you an open-ended prompt to write to. So tell us about a time when you really struggled in college. Tell us about a change that you made. Tell us about a time when you failed miserably. They love to do that one. The other one, the statement of purpose, is more compacted, it's more precise, it's specific, and it's to the point. So a personal statement is kind of more theoretical. This is who I am, this is what I believe in, this is what I hope to accomplish. A statement of purpose, here's my goal for being here, boom, 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 boom. Here's what I hope to accomplish, here's what I want from you, and here's what you can expect from me. So watch the wording to make sure, are they asking for a personal statement, or are they asking for a statement of purpose, or do they want both? Sometimes they want both. Okay, a resume or a CV, curriculum vitae. I had never heard of a curriculum vitae until I started my doctoral program. So it's kind of like a resume, it just sounds a little fancier, and it has just a couple more things to it. So on your resume, they want to know about your credentials, awards you may have received in your undergraduate. Did you do any research? Did you publish anything? How did you contribute to your undergraduate university? Okay? They want it to be clearly organized, easy to read. You don't want to have to search for information. You want to be able to go down and see, boom, 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 here it is. If you write a curriculum vitae, it's just a little bit longer, and you have a section in there for awards and publications. You don't necessarily have a section for awards and publications because undergraduate, you're not required to publish. And you may or may not have received any awards. But when you get, I never wrote a curriculum vitae until I was working on my doctorate, and then when my dissertation got published, you put a curriculum vitae up front. So if you ever see curriculum vitae, it's just an expanded, more professional resume. Sometimes when you apply to graduate school, they're going to ask for a portfolio of your work. So basically what you put in a portfolio is any research that you did, any projects that you worked on, put any visuals in there that might apply to your portfolio of work. And we'll talk a little more about that in a moment. Okay, interview. You're gonna get to the point when they've read your paperwork and they like what they see on paper, that now it's time to either meet face to face, or more than likely right now, a Zoom call, and they're gonna interview you, and they want to know who are you, and are you going to fit in with us? In my years as a principal and out here in interviewing people, I personally wasn't looking to see, did they have a 4.0? I was looking to see, how do they fit in with us? Are their beliefs my beliefs? Do they believe in students first? Will they work well with parents? One of my favorite questions to ask in an interview is, tell me something about yourself that doesn't apply to this job. Like, what are your hobbies, or what do you like to do for fun? Because that just presents a different side of that person. So they may ask you some questions that you think, that's not even related to this. They may ask that, tell me a time you failed miserably. We'll talk about that a little more too. Okay, so any questions about that now? Those were the requirements that you will probably see on your grad school application. Okay, so now the second section, we're gonna talk about all those things again, but this is called tips for crushing each part of the grad application. Okay, on the official transcript, the tip is, it may take time. Using the clearinghouse is pretty speedy. It's usually a week by the time you requested it online till it gets to the university. However, a lot of people across the country are still working from home. And so it may take a little more time to get those transcripts sent. So the tip here is, get that transcript sent early. As soon as you have figured out which grad school or which schools you're applying for, go ahead and get those transcripts sent. Do not open sealed envelopes. Usually they want an official transcript. Using the clearinghouse, more than likely the transcript is not going to come to you. But remember when I said I bought 5 extra copies of all my transcripts, not knowing if I would ever need them or not? They came to me in sealed envelopes. I never opened them. So when I applied to the social work program, I was able to take the 5 copies I already had here, no, 4 copies I already had here, and put them in their school mail and send them over to the social work department because they were in a sealed envelope. So they accepted those as official transcripts. Okay, we talked about this briefly. Make sure you put some money aside. A transcript request through the clearinghouse is usually $10 to $15. Some universities charge more, some charge less. I think Southern's is either 10 or 12, something like that. But know that you're going to incur some cost here. Test scores, one and done. How many times should I take the GRE, LSAT, MCAT? How many times should I plan on taking them? Best advice is one and done. Take it one time and be done. Make sure you study in advance for it so that you know you can get your best score possible. GRE costs $200 every time you take it. We do have discount codes in our office for 50% off, so it will only cost you $100. But still $100 is a lot of money. So if you're going to plan on taking it, try to do the very best to prepare in advance so that it's one and done. You took it and you're out of there. But what if it's not one and done? Then set yourself a limit. Say, okay, Debbie, I am going to put enough money aside for you to take this twice. Because you need to live on a budget. You can't afford to spend $200 to $500 every time you're taking a graduate test. So try to shoot for one and done. But if you feel like you're not happy with your score, then allow yourself a second time, save the money up for that. But try not to take it more than that, because taking it is somewhat stressful in your life. I remember when I took my GRE, even though it's been many years ago, just being sick to my stomach and just feeling like I was going to puke. And as soon as I walked out of that hall being done with my GRE, it's like I felt great. And then I realized, oh my gosh, that thing was more stressful than what I realized it was. So good reasons for one and done, or not more than twice. It costs you a lot of money and it puts a lot of stress on your mental health. So one and done, or set a limit. Question?
Do universities do super scores? So if you take it twice, are they going to take your best score? Or are they
That is really a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I will try to research. So the question is, will a graduate program super score your scores? Like on the ACT, we'll take your best and we'll combine them all together out here. You know, that's probably up to each individual university, because not all colleges super score. We do, Crowder does. So, good question. I will research that and get back with you. Okay, take advantage of free, I should have capitalized free. There are many, many companies out there that will be more than happy to sell you stuff to study for your graduate school test. You'll find out you can spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. But you can go online and there are lots and lots of free resources. So type in free resources for the GRE, free resources for the MCAT, LSAT. We actually have study materials in our office. If there's something you need that we don't have, we are more than happy to buy that and keep it here for you to check out. We have, if you want to borrow any study materials, you can. We just have a little place where we write who checked it out on what day, just so we can kind of keep track of it. But look for free resources. On our campus, ACT's office also has resources that you can check out. So, don't spend any more money than you have to. Look for free. Free is good. Okay, letters of recommendation. The tip for crushing this is tell them, and I covered that, but tell your people writing your letters exactly what it is that they're looking for. The other recommendation that I have here for you is when students ask me to write a letter of recommendation, I kind of have a formatted one already that I use, like name, address, dear graduate committee at, and then fill in the school. But what I don't have is, I don't know your lives. I know this much of who you guys are if I'm lucky. But there are all kinds of things you guys have done and have accomplished that I have no clue about. For example, we just sent out ODK nominations. Well, there was a GPA requirement, there was a grade level requirement, and there was a leadership requirement. I can get you GPA, I can get you grade level. I have no idea what leadership you guys are doing unless you've shared that with me. So when you ask someone to write a letter of recommendation, best thing a student ever did for me is they emailed me or they handed me a one-page summarized list of everything about them, where they've worked, what things they enjoy in their free time, what organizations they've been in on campus, any awards they've received. Last year I was writing recommendations a lot for a student who was trying to get into med school. So he was going either for MD program or DO program. So I had a form letter for MD program and I had a form letter for DO program, because DO is more focused on the holistic person, whereas MD is more focused on the physical aspects of the person. So give your person that letter of little quick facts about you. It will help us write a much more personable letter. Plenty of time. They recommend 2 months. I recommend at least 2 weeks. And the other thing I always say to the students asking me to write the letter, and I recommend you do, is give them a deadline. I'm a person that if you don't give me a deadline, I set it aside and I forget about it. So I always tell students, tell me when you need this by, and then I go put it on my calendar like 2 days before and say, have this letter ready for TE by that date. So give us deadlines. And if we don't have that paper to you, shame on us, but we get busy or we forget. So this tip is send them a gentle reminder, maybe about a week before you need it, 5 to 7 days before you need it. Just send a reminder like, hey, I know you're busy, I'm just reminding you that my letter for my graduate school application is due on blah, blah, blah. We will appreciate that reminder. Okay, if you're writing a personal statement or a statement of purpose, keep it simple, try to be precise, focus in on what it is they have asked you to do, what it is they want to know about. Don't go off track talking about no one in my family graduated, blah, blah, blah. It's okay to say that, to say you're the first in your family, but don't elaborate it until, like, I had 16 cousins and 2 of us went to school and now there are 12 of us who are teachers, blah, blah, blah. They don't want to know all that, okay? So stick to the point and keep it simple and concise. Tell them why you want to go to their school. You have a lot of schools and universities you can choose from when you pursue your master's or your doctorate degree. Why did you pick the school you picked? Tell them why, because you realize you're paying them money. You're going to pay them a lot of money. And so tell them why I chose you over some other school. And don't go into too much detail or don't try sucking it up or too much flattery, but say, I went online and I researched what your psychology department does. and then some facts maybe off their website and say, this is in alignment with me, my goal beyond grad school is to do this, and it aligns perfectly with what your program goals are. So you gotta do a little bit of homework there. This goes back to the statement of purpose or the personal statement. Don't spend too much time on your personal history, but really tell the committee why you want this degree and why you want it from that department. Resume, CV, make sure you keep it short. We kind of talked about that. The curriculum vitae has your awards and your research and things on it. Oh, this was a good tip. Don't copy and paste. Oftentimes, you're now doing everything electronically, and so there'll be a box there for you to put your letter of recommendation or your personal statement or statement of purpose. I have done this. I have copied and pasted. This tip is don't do that because it changes the format. So it might have looked good on your desktop, and when it got copied into there, it may have messed the format up. And then when they're reading that, they're like, what is wrong with this person? So this tip is instead uploaded as a PDF, and then the format doesn't change. Okay, some tips on your portfolio is make sure you attach any visuals that support what it is that you're saying. It says use a pull-down box up at the top, so you can go to letters of recommendation, pull down, publications, pull down, research, pull down, projects I participated in, pull down, organizations, things like that. Yeah, it says we're becoming more of a technology field, and it just is a really good impression if you do everything electronically. Basic layout, use a simple design. Put a title page on there, but it's short. A title page has just very specific things on there. If there's something really important you want them to know, then put a link to the document. So maybe you were in a club, you were president of a club here at Southern. Rather than elaborate all that, put organization activities, then put a link that would go to a page here at Missouri Southern where they could read about you. When our program is a grant, and I've written grants for lots of things in my life, and a grant will always limit you, much like a letter or much like your application is going to limit you to 200 words, or when we wrote our grant, it couldn't be more than 21 pages, things like that. So you get good at putting hyperlinks in there that will link them to the whole story, because you don't have enough words allocated to put the whole story in there. Okay, any questions about that? Oh, one more. In the interview, be honest. Just be honest. If you try to bluff your way through something, it's so apparent. It is perfectly okay to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll research it and get back to you, just like what we just did a while ago. In here, this is where they're probably going to ask you about past mistakes. And guys, we are all human and we all make mistakes. So just own them, learn from them, and move on. So this tip here is saying that. If they ask you that question, tell me about a time you failed miserably. Tell them about the time briefly, but then segue into how you handled it and how you turned it around so it was a great thing. You know, we all make mistakes, we learn from those mistakes, and we improve our lives. Okay, make sure you're prepared when you go in for the interview. They know you on paper now. So they could ask you anything about what's on paper. So if you hyperlinked an activity, hyperlinked something back to Southern, make sure you know what was in that hyperlink you sent, because they could ask you about it. Know what you put in your personal statement. Refresh that before you go in or before you go online for your interview, because more than likely they're going to refer back to what you said. Dress to impress. Easy. Business attire. Not too bright. Don't go, ladies, or men too, don't go in with a red, bright, bold colored shirt. Kind of understated, kind of subtle. You don't want to attract too much attention. You don't want them to be focused on the geometric shirt you had on. Like today, I probably should not have worn this. I probably should have worn something without a pattern. But yeah, just business, think business, professional. And I love the tip at the bottom of this page, because now we're living in an online world. Don't wear your pajama pants on bottom, because You may have to get up, so don't look professional from the waist up. Make sure you're professional head to toe, because they may ask you for something that you may have to go retrieve out of your closet or your cabinet or your bedroom. So professional head to toe. That's a fun tip. Okay, now we're moving on. Anything on those kinds of tips? Okay, now we're moving on what not to do when you're applying for grad school. And this is one that you heard ever since you were a 15-year-old kid applying for your very first job. But it says, do not leave blank spaces. Because if you leave a space blank, then their mind tries to fill that blank in for you. And they might get it completely wrong. So if it's a question and it doesn't apply to you at all, put N/A for capital N, capital A for not applicable. Because then they know, okay, well that's why they didn't answer, because it's not applicable. But if you've left a blank, it leaves their mind open to freely wander and put the information in for you, and they may get it completely wrong. So fill in your blanks, don't leave them assumptions. Don't use any shorthand or any abbreviations. Make sure you spell check, please check your grammar. Keep uniformity between your documents. So if this was done in 12-point Times New Roman, make sure it's all done in 12-point Times New Roman. And those that are doing your recommendations, it's okay to say to me, hey, Deb, when you type this up for me, will you do it in 12-point Times New Roman? And I'll say, sure, you betcha. So you don't want your application to be like in a cutesy little font here, and then an italicized one here, and then a completely different font here. You want uniformity in your fonts and your organization. Your headings, if you bold one heading, bold every heading. If this heading is indented, then every heading should be indented. If this heading is to the left, then every heading should be to the left. Don't become overconfident either. These people are experts in their field. They've been in your shoes and they've graduated already. So they are experts in the field. So if you go in and you try to impress them too much, then that's going to turn them off. They're going to be like, oh, she's a showboat, or he's grandiose. So it's okay to go in and tell what you know. But don't go in and like, oh yeah, if they say something, oh yeah, I did that one time, blah, blah. Don't be bigger and better, been there, done that. These are people who know what they know. They're experts in that field. And so don't go in and try to showboat or be too overconfident. It says that it comes off as arrogant, and that often overconfidence masks fear. The fear of either not knowing or not being the best or the smartest. Because you guys may have been the best and the smartest in your field out here. You may have been the best speller in grade school. You may have been the best athlete. But sooner or later, you are not the best. Somebody else is going to step up beyond that. So don't be overconfident, but go in knowing what you know. Don't overdo the praise. It's okay to say, oh, Dr. Rose, I read online where your dissertation was in blah, 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 and that's a field I'm very interested in. That's okay to say. Don't be like, oh my gosh, Dr. Rose, you're so awesome. I read your dissertation and blah, blah, blah. Nix-A on the praise too much, okay? It's okay to acknowledge if you can tie it back to something about you or your interest, but don't be like, oh my gosh, you're so awesome. I can't believe you won the Nobel Peace Prize, blah, blah, okay? It reeks of desperation is what this slide says. Okay, frequently asked questions about grad school. When should I start preparing? This slide recommends toward the end of your junior year. I know that does not always happen. I'm working with a girl right now. We meet every week because she's graduating in December. And she's like, oh, I've got to get this, and I've got to get this done. I should have started earlier, kind of thing, and that's okay. I, myself, am queen of procrastination sometimes. So if you're still a junior, maybe toward the end of your junior year, start thinking about researching schools and things like that. I love that this student and I are meeting weekly because it lets me know where she's at in her progress, and it's also helping her because we're holding each other accountable. At the end of our meeting, I say, what do you expect from me before next meeting? And she says, and this is what I expect of myself before next meeting. So we've started out looking at 100 grad schools. We're down to looking at 2, researching the department, talking about the test scores, how she's gonna pay, etc. I love that she's blessing me with her time. This doesn't apply to any of you, but you may not go to grad school right now. And then 10 years from now, you may say, hey, when I was in your shoes, I said, I am done. I am never going back to school again. And that lasted about 3 years, because in teaching, you get raises if you get that next degree. And the longer you get that raise, the more money you make over your 30-year career. So if you don't go to grad school right after undergrad, that is perfectly fine. It's okay to have that break in between. Yes?
But you'd recommend even if we didn't, having that break, already have something picked out, already have that idea, already kind of put in the research and put in the work early on.
Right. I mean, you could always, in the back of my mind, I probably knew I was going to go on because I just love education. I love learning. But, you know, you're just so burned out by the time you get done with your bachelor's degree. You're like, oh, I'm so done. I never want to read another textbook again.
Right.
I knew probably I was going to go on, and then, you know, here I am later with my doctorate degree. But it's okay to take a break. Mental health wise, we might need that break. Okay. What if I don't have the GPA I want? I have a couple students I've worked with on this before. Most grad schools want a 3.0. If you don't have it and you're just slightly below it, there are some things you can do. Get some letters. This particular person I'm thinking of was in the field of psychology. She was working in the field of psychology, working through Ozark Center. So she got letters of recommendation from them. In that case, it was appropriate to get a letter of recommendation from your employer because it was related to the field she wanted to go into. And then in her letter that she wrote, she explained that, you know, her first 60 college hours, when she first came out of high school, she wasn't taking college separately, but so if you look at her GPA in her major field of study, it's well above a 3.0. It was those classes that she took on the first 2 years of school that kind of pulled her GPA down. So write letters explaining, get letters of support. Can my previous work experience count for credit? That's entirely up to the university. Some schools do and some schools don't. Up to you, up to that university. Can I submit more letters of recommendation than what's required? No, probably not. If they say they want 4, give them 4. If they say they will accept more, and if you feel like that 5th recommendation is critical, then yes, you can submit it. But if they say 3 to 4, only do 3 to 4, unless they specifically state that they will accept more. They have a lot of stuff they're reading, a lot of applications they're going through. What if I got rejected from the school I really, really wanted? Should I apply again, or am I wasting my time? They recommend, yes, you can apply again. However, seek some feedback from them. What could I have done differently the first time? The best person for you guys to get to know is the administrative assistant in the graduate program. When I got my specialist at Springfield, the person that was the very most helpful to me was what we would have called the secretary, now the administrative assistant. She knew deadlines, she knew dates, she knew how to get a hold of people, she knew format. She was my very best friend. Okay, can you make a career change? I thought I wanted to be a vet, and now I don't. My daughter's a perfect example. My daughter got her undergrad in business management, finance, HR, blah, 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 and she did that 10, 12 years, and then she said, this is not what I want the rest of my life to look like. And so she's at Springfield now finishing up a master's in mental health counseling with play therapy and lots of brain-based research, childhood trauma things. She's going to change the world. So yes, it's okay to make a career change. Perfectly fine. Okay, moving on. Any questions about that section? Okay. Then I found the second article that I referenced on the front of here on how to pay for it, because this article didn't have any. So here's 5 different strategies that you can use to pay. Number 1, get your employer to help you pay. Lots of places will pay. They may only pay for a course if it's related to your job with them. You may sign a contract with them. Medical field does this a lot. Nurses, surge techs. We'll sign a contract with you. We're going to pay off, Ozark Center will pay off half of your student loans, but you have to promise to work for them for 3 years or something like that. Some schools, if you're going into education, Webb City School District used to pay for your graduate school. Joplin does not. I don't know if that's changed. That was years and years ago. Webb City changed it when I was there to, it has to be in your field. So I was a teacher at the time. They wouldn't pay for me to get my administration degree. They would have paid if I got it in curriculum or reading or technology. So, but lots of, they did a survey of 3,000 employers, 50% of them paid something on tuition reimbursement. Lane and Platt, you have to have at least an A or a B in the class, and it has to be related to your job, but they will reimburse. I know another company that will reimburse 100% if you get an A, 80% if you get a B, 50% if you get a C, and nothing if you get below a C. So ask, because they may. Get a graduate school scholarship. So here's the key to this, is you have to search for those scholarships, and they're generally speaking not at the university level, they're at your school or college level. So if you're majoring in psychology, they're gonna have the graduate scholarships for psychology in their department. It's not gonna be like a foundation scholarship where you apply here and it covers a multitude of things. Generally speaking, the scholarships are within the department, the college, or the school that you're majoring in. Work for the graduate school. Lots of students go on and they become grad assistants. That means you're grading papers for the professors. They become teaching assistants. You're teaching like undergraduate history or psychology or biology courses, depending on what. So there are lots and lots of opportunities. We had a student graduated last year, she's biology, and her husband graduated music, and they applied to their schools, and they ended up at the school that he wanted more than her. But they both got full rides, they're both working for the university, and they're both getting paid a salary from the university, okay? It's not a huge salary, but it's a salary. All their expenses are covered, but housing, so yeah, look for employment opportunities. Then borrow smart. So on the undergraduate level, you got grants, and grants do not have to be paid back. Generally speaking, the federal government does not provide grants on the graduate level. It's only loans. On the undergraduate level, you have subsidized loans, which means the government pays your interest while you're in school, and we have unsubsidized loans, meaning, well, you make a little more so the government will pay your interest as accumulated for you to pay. There are no grants at the master's and higher level. There are only loans. There are no subsidized loans. There are only unsubsidized loans. So the money that you're borrowing starts accrediting and accruing interest from the moment you borrow it. And if you're in grad school 2 years or 6 years, that interest compiles interest on interest. So you can be making small payments along the way, but like undergrad, you don't have to start paying student loans back until 6 months after you graduate. So borrow smart. Also borrow smart in knowing which type of loan you should take. Depending on the field you go to, there's reimbursements through the federal government, generally speaking. If you work in a nonprofit field, like the university is a nonprofit, or you work for United Way or Community Blood Bank of the Ozarks, if you're working for a nonprofit, if you work there for 10 years in a row, then your loans are forgiven. So I'm working on loan forgiveness out here through my loans. If you're a teacher, education, you want to make sure you take, I think it's a Stafford loan, because after you teach 5 years, they will forgive, and I know I don't have my numbers exactly right, I think it's 5,000.
Well, it says it's Stafford loans payout.
Yeah, that's how much you can borrow in a Stafford loan.
Okay.
But then there's loan forgiveness afterward. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. The maximum lifetime loan you can get from a Stafford is $138,500, which sounds like a heck of a lot of money, but my doctorate level was $80,000. Yeah, and that's not counting my master's degree or my specialist degree. Your degrees are going to get a lot more expensive because that was 10 years ago. So $138,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not when you think about what you're going to pay.
So what were you saying about the teaching that they'll forgive up to?
Yeah, so I'm going to go right here. So there's a student loan calculator on studentaid.ed.gov. So here, certain state, federal, and school-sponsored repayment programs can offer loan forgiveness. So in teacher education, I think it's $5,000 a year, unless you're in a STEM area, math, science, technology, or special ed, if you're teaching special ed, then I think it's 16,000 a year that they will, if it's a high needs area, they will forgive more. If you're in a nonprofit, there's loan forgiveness. My particular loan forgiveness is a 10-year, have to get a nonprofit status for 10 years. Medical science people, they're gonna give you a contract when you go to work for them, and you wanna negotiate in that contract getting my student loans paid for. And usually they're gonna say, you have to work X amount of years for us. So when you're applying for jobs, look for those kinds of things. This is talking about Stafford again, you don't pay till 6 months. Loan money. So maybe your tuition that semester is 10,000, but they're willing to lend you 20,000. And boy, I could use that extra 10,000, I could get a car, I could blah, blah, blah. Just remember, you have to pay that back. So wise words are borrow only what you need. But often if you're in a graduate program, you're living off of your student loans too, so we understand that. Okay, when you file your income taxes, I hope you all are doing this right now. You should be taking your tuition off of your income taxes right now and getting an educational credit back. Once you finish bachelor's degree and you go to graduate level degrees, then the credit is called lifetime learning credit. And you can subtract up to, and it's a credit, so you can subtract up to $2,000 each year. Now, there are some exceptions to that. If you're a single filer, you can't make more than $67,000, and if you're married, you can't make more than $134,000 and take the lifetime credit. But most of you won't be doing more than that at this point in your career. Oh, questions? We came to the end abruptly. Okay, this will be on the SharePoint site. What kind of questions you guys have for me? Nope. Okay, remember we've got study materials in our office. Remember we've got discount codes on GRE. I've never asked for a discount code for the LSAT or MCAT because no student has ever asked me. But if a student asks me, I am not above getting on the phone and calling and saying, hey, you got a 50% discount code we can have? Yes, ma'am.
So when you said that you guys have study materials, you have study materials for the GRE?
We do have study materials for the
So
GRE.
we'll just check that out whenever
You check it out. Cheyenne, our administrative assistant, has just a Excel sheet. She just types your name and the date in that you checked out.
Okay.
So, and if you come across study materials that you want and we don't have them, then let us know and we will order them. We have money in the grant for that. So, okay. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. Oh, yes, remember to do your evaluation form and lay it on the desk for me, please.